Understanding your role in Overwatch 2 is one of the most important elements in the game. In today's video, I'm going to be giving an in-depth guide on each role and how they are supposed to be played. This not only should help you understand how your main role is supposed to be played, but also in general how the game should flow. Now, the first thing I want to address before we even get into anything, come on fellas, I know we can do better than that. With Overwatch switching from 6v6 to 5v5, it makes playing your role that much more important. To start off, we're going to talk about tank. Honestly, tank is arguably the most important and hardest role in Overwatch 2. This is simply because there is so many things that you have to be doing on tank to be successful. While yes, it may be mechanically easy and the characters might be easy, it also is strategically the hardest. The first thing I want to go over is the passive of tanks. So the passive reduces knockback, and you have less ult generated by your healing and damage received. Very minor thing, but this makes tanks less vulnerable to booping. So on maps such as Liang Tower, keep this in mind, especially when trying to cross the bridge. In general, the tanks have high health and survivability. They also play a disruptor role while creating space. So this is going to be your bread and butter of the tank role. You always want to be in the front line creating space for your teammates. Obviously, your DPS characters and your support characters are going to be a lot squishier than you are, so it's important that you're always playing the front line and protecting them. I'm going to do a separate video talking about space because it is a huge overall aspect of Overwatch 2, and also the tanks are debatably the carry. I'm sure we've all seen it in our games that a good tank can absolutely dominate games. If there's a massive tank diff in the game, you're more than likely going to win. Since the game is now 5v5 and they removed a tank position, the tanks are a lot stronger than they used to be. With that being said, it's important on tank that you play your life. I can't stress enough how important this is, as you are one of the most impactful, if not the most impactful role in the entire game. Some important tips I have for all my tank players out there is make sure you are very aware of your surroundings. Not only of your teammates' positioning, but also the enemy positioning. If you know where everyone is in a team fight, it is very easy to position correctly. Once you understand positioning as a tank, it's important to communicate your next move. Usually tanks have the big engage tools that allow your team to actually start team fights. So by using your mic and communicating when you're going to use these abilities, it's very crucial to win games. If you're able to get big engages off in team fights and peel for your support and DPSs, you're easily going to be winning more games. Not only that, it's very important to know when to switch as a tank. For example, if the enemy team is playing Roadhog, who's very popular right now, honestly, Winston might not be the best choice. Winston kind of gets dookied on by Roadhog. You got to know when to switch and make sure you're not playing bad matchups. Now, this is probably the most important thing to do when playing tank, is to play your life. I can't stress enough how bad it is to overextend and die, because it just makes the team fight after so much harder for your team. The tanks provide a critical role in generating space and also survivability for the rest of your team, and without you, honestly, they're frankly hopeless. So keep that in mind the next time you're gonna load up tank in a ranked game. The next role I want to talk about is DPS. So the passive of DPS is it grants reload speed on a kill. It used to grant movement speed, but Blizzard has removed that out of the game. The primary role of DPS is to find final blows, soften up tankier targets, deal damage obviously, and also they have very strong ultimates for getting multiple frags. DPS should be utilizing high grounds and good positioning to soften up DPS and deal safe damage. Now, when I say safe damage, I mean damage that you are outputting while you are not going to be receiving any in return. This is one of the most important things to understand about DPS, is the concept of safe damage. It's very important that you are able to deal a lot of damage without taking it in return, because DPSs are very squishy characters. They tend to be able to harass targets from long range, in specifically their supports and the opposite DPSs, while also dealing crazy amounts of burst damage close and far range. In general, you want to be playing behind your tank at all times, and also be giving the support to the rest of your team whenever somebody goes in. For example, say a Winston jumps into the battle and they go on your supports, make sure that you're shooting the Winston to try and get them off your supports as soon as possible. In my personal opinion as well, DPS is going to be the role you're swapping the most on. For example, if you're playing Junkrat and the enemy team has a Pharah, it's very likely that you should go a hit scan to start harassing the Pharah. If not, she's probably going to have free reign and just be able to take over the entire game. In Overwatch, I can't stress this enough how actually important it is to switch characters. For example, if they have a triple hit scan and I'm playing Pharah, There's been times where even if I have ultimate, I switch anyways because I know I'm going to get more value out of a different character. Understanding DPS is make sure to understand matchups in the game, what counters what, what's good against what. For example, if they have double hit scan, like I was saying before against your Pharah, right, you can just go Genji and counter that. Not only this, but playing with your other DPS partner is very important as well. For example, if you're playing Junkrat and you have a soldier on your team, that's a great combo, right? Junkrat can boop up the enemies into the air, and specifically their supports, and Soldier more than likely will be able to finish them off. Another solid combo is if you have a dive comp with a Winston or Doomfist, right? Genji and Tracer, that's a really good combo in that situation. Overwatch is all about team comps, guys. It really, really is. I can't stress this enough, especially at low elo. And if you get that Hanzo that refuses to switch in your games, honestly, the best advice I can give you is just play a character that can hit everything. When I was climbing through the ranks, I was just playing Soldier because he can hit everything. Your primary role as a DPS player, deal safe damage, harass the enemy supports, harass the enemy DPS, and also shoot the tank when they get close to your team. Last but not least, we are going to be talking about supports. Their passive automatically healing over time, and the main role of supports is to assist allies by healing them, boosting their damage, providing other utilities such as anti and Lucio speed boost. While yes, supports typically have less mobility, they also provide a lot more value to the team. Now, one of the major tips I can give as support is make sure to play your life very, very carefully. Because you do have less mobility, it is harder to stay alive, but if you are able to stay alive, you're more than likely going to win more games. Think about it, if you lose one support, that's almost half your healing and your utility down the drain. It's very important to stay alive and make sure to keep your team healthy. On payload maps, it's typical for the support to play back and on the payload, and make sure to communicate with your teammates when you lose line of sight of them. Communicate, guys, please communicate. It's how you climb in this game. Listen, if your teammates complaining they're not getting any heals, just ignore them. Literally just ignore them and mute them. Chances are their positioning is probably dog. Listen, if you're positioning correctly and you're healing your teammates, you're doing your job. Chances are if they're by themselves, they're not going to be getting heals anyways, and they're just mispositioning, so don't even worry about it. Positioning on support is probably one of the most important things you can do, right? It's more important than actually giving the heals itself, because if you position correctly as a support, you're going to provide a lot more value to your teammates. And just like how it is with every role, it's very important to know when to switch on support. An example of this is when they go Roadhog, it's very important you have an Ana or Zenyatta to help melt down the Roadhog. If not, his survivability is just absolutely insane and allows him to run rampant over the game. In general, supports that provide great utility, immaculate heals, and also being very evasive to the enemy team makes it very hard for the enemy team to actually do anything against you. And one last thing, please position behind your tank as support. I don't want to see you tunnel visioning for a kill just to get that final blow. Honestly, it's not even worth it half of the time. Especially if you die for it, you're just going to be on respawn, and more than likely the enemy team is going to gain so much space off of it. In general, if you follow the tips in this video, you should have a general understanding of how the three roles are supposed to be played. That being said, if you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe, and also leave a comment. My name is Halzeey, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.